What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some more r/am I the butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, to stop myself from singing there. Timestamps are in the description below and along the timeline, but if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too, as it all massively helps out our channel. And let's just dive straight in to today's stories. Much love, guys. Now, our first story comes from Chrominium 2. Am I the arsehole for not giving up my window seat in a plane, then later saying, "You're not pretty enough to act this way"? Ooh, so I'm pretty convinced I'm not the arse, but wanted to get an outside perspective. Last week I had a work trip in the UK. I was flying from Ottawa to London. Since my work was covering it, they already booked my seat in economy and I got the window seat. When they loaded the plane up, I was first to sit in my row. Some time passes and this tall blonde girl asks me if she can have the window seat. I really wanted the window seat because I've never been to Europe and I wanted to see all that I can. I told her this and said no thanks. She got defensive and said that she needs the window seat and she has to work the next day, so doesn't want to be jet lagged. I countered and said I work as well and already booked to have the seat. You can pick which seat you want when booking the flight. It went back and forth a little. She even asked to see my ticket to make sure I did have the window seat, even though she had the aisle seat. When she stopped making a fuss, she actually put her carry-on luggage in the middle seat when the plane was about to take off. I didn't say anything because it really didn't affect me, but that's pretty bold. Sometime in the flight, she ruffles around in her bag and tries to pick up, and it bumps my table in front of me and spills my small cup of water. She literally looks at me and says, "Can you keep your water away from me?" At this point, I was in disbelief, so I just put some earbuds in and just ignored her. After some hours in, she nudges my shoulder to get my attention. I take my buds out and she says that she can faintly hear my music and it's distracting her. At this point, I was pretty done with her and just said I don't care. She didn't like that response and said that she has connections with a lot of people who will get me if I don't stop annoying her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said to her, "I don't know who you think you are." By then, she cut me off and told me she's a big-time model with millions of followers and that she knows people all around the world. At this point, I was just getting really done with her, so I said "You're not pretty enough to be acting this way," and just put my earbuds in the rest of the flight. Nothing else happened, and it was more just uncomfortable. My girlfriend said I should have just given up my seat and avoided all of this, but I hate feeling like a doormat to people. Q said at the very start of this post, the seat was booked for you, you wanted the window seat, why should you have to give it up for an entitled person who's being an arsehole? So, no, you're definitely not the arsehole to be in this situation. When I first come into it and I saw that title, I thought, oh no. But one of those ones that tricks you, you know. And personally, I do like an airline story. There's always dramatic stuff going on planes, isn't there? But I maybe even would have went further and reported her, especially for the threat as well. That'd have been interesting to see what happened. But we'll start with Adventurous.803 who says, "Not the arsehole, I would have reported her for threatening you. Why is she in economy if she's a big time model?" Good point. And Slydog says, "Oh man, I was so ready to bag on you based on the title. But then I read and now I'm laughing and internet high-fiving you. Because I can't think of a better response after all of that." And Sarah says, "Not the arsehole, and your girlfriend is so wrong. Sure, you could have appeased the entitled lady that threatened you, but why do that? So she can continue to think it's okay to behave the way she did." And One Twist says, "Not the arsehole, she was rude and entitled. It's probably the first time she's heard the word no." And 1209 Saska says, "Not the arsehole," and quotes, "She's a big time model with millions of followers." And then says, "But in the economy like the rest of us." And we have one more from Nim Opit saying, "Not the arsehole, you can also complain to the flight attendant after she threatened you. Threats in the air are not taken lightly." Now, what would you do if you was in that situation? I know it can be very awkward for some people, you know, for the confrontation side of things, but how would you deal with that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and we'll move on to the next story. And our next story comes from Stepmama Drama 77. Am I the arsehole for laughing in my stepmom's face when she said she raised me and saying she didn't? I, female 28, met my stepmom, female 30. Yes, you read that right, when I was 17. My dad is 49. When they got married, he was 38 and she was 19. Fucking disgusting, I know. My mum died when I was 10. When my dad told me how old she was, I honestly thought he was joking. She's less than 2 years older than me. I have 2 younger twin brothers who are 25 and a half brother who is 5 and a half sister who is about 18 months. I've never really bonded with her in a parent-child way, obviously, and we butt heads quite a lot when I was younger. I moved out at 19 just because I couldn't stand her acting like she had all this authority over me. I have a daughter who is the same age as my half-sister. We got pregnant about 4 months apart. We live in the same area and it's a quite small town, and honestly people don't assume she's my stepmom. We go to the same mummy classes and groups, and I babysit for them often since I'm a stay-at-home mum. Us getting pregnant together has definitely brought us closer, but like in a friend way. Cut to last Thursday, my friend Tammy was hosting a mummy and me swim party thing because she just got a pool put in. I've gone to great lengths to ignore that she's my stepmom while we're around these people. I haven't brought it up and neither is she. We were all in the pool when I got up to grab a drink and she asked me if I could get her one. I jokingly said no. We all laughed and she said, "It's times like these I wish I could still ground you." Our friends looked confused. She mentioned the fact that she was my stepmom. They were all confused and I was immediately in a bad mood. They started asking her what that was like and she said it's definitely hard to raise 3 kids at 19. And I laughed. She looked caught off guard and I said, "I moved out a year after you moved in and my brothers followed when they turned 18. She looked hurt but laughed it off and made an excuse to leave. I thought it was all good until my dad called me later that day to tell me that was an arsehole thing to say. He said I hurt her feelings and embarrassed her, and she felt that I finally respected her as a mother after all these years before this. I then laughed and hung up. My husband says I'm right, but we haven't spoke since. I feel like they want me to apologise. Am I the arsehole for saying this?" And we're going to start straight away with Ferrero28 on this one saying, wow, I can't imagine being a 17-year-old and seeing your father with someone that's barely legal and the same age as you. First off, your father is kind of gross for that, and I am so sorry yet to endure that grossness. Second, she had no part of raising you at all, and she knows that, so I'm confused as to why she is pushing being a mother figure for you. You are not the arsehole at all. She is pushing a narrative that is clearly not true, and you had every right to put her in her place. I will never understand men like your father, but I would love to know how your younger brothers feel about their relationship. And Highwood Shady says, "Not the arsehole, she decided to get clever. You put her in her place. She tried a power play and it failed spectacularly. At the end of the day, she's just embarrassed. It's not your problem. You didn't start the conversation. You just ended it." And Omega Beads of Rice says, "Not the arsehole. So many things I could say, but I'll keep it short. 1. Your dad's fault truthfully. 2. She opened that can of worms. 3. She basically took credit for the fruits of others' labour just because she was there in the last little bit after all the hard work was done. 4. She was a child herself still. 5. Reiterating is your dad's fault for marrying a child mentally and borderline physically." And Adar says, "Not the arsehole. Your dad on the other hand." And one more from Rabbit saying, "Not the arsehole. She's the one who had to make it weird by bringing it up. I'm sure all those people were doing the math in their head thinking, raised. She's 2 years older than you. She needs to get a grip. She's hardly your mother." Now, how would you feel if you put yourself in OP's shoes and you was in that situation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and we'll move on to another story. And our next story comes from Throw for Privacy 5. Am I the arsehole for refusing to let my stepson return home without punishment after he ruined my daughter's book collection? My biological 12-year-old daughter, Susan, likes to collect and read old children's books. She's become an incredible reader. She had problems with reading and learning before, and we were advised to encourage her to read, and ever since she started reading, which she does regularly, her skills improved. She also reads to her 2-year-old sister every night. I have a 16-year-old stepson, Levi, who can be a hothead sometimes. We don't have a son-dad relationship, but I respect him and he respects me, although he can act quite mean and selfish towards me and his sisters. He'll throw away stuff that belongs to us over small arguments and teases Susan for spending a lot of time to read, calling her grandma. My wife and I discussed his behaviour and had conversations and agreed on punishments, but Levi would go to his dad's place whenever he'd caused troubles and have his dad yell at me for wanting to discuss a suitable punishment. Then Levi comes over days later, expecting me to let go of what he did every time. It's frustrating. I got a call at work from Susan saying Levi took her entire book collection and threw them in the pool after she refused to lend him and his friends her camera for his trip. My wife helped get them out, but they were all wet and some were torn. It was horrific because some of those books are hard to get and meant a lot to Susan as part of her life. I was so mad at Levi. I came home to a conversation with my wife to decide on a punishment, but he already packed a small bag and went to his dad's. I asked my wife how could she let him basically run after doing this, and she said he called his dad and he came to pick him up after Susan said that I was coming home to deal with the problem. I went to his dad's house and he refused to let me see him. I told him how Levi was hiding from consequences, and his dad tried to justify why Levi was acting out by blaming for how me and Susan treat him. He even said he'd get CPS involved if I ever tried to punish him because I'm not his dad, I have no right. Adding what Levi did was a reaction to my daughter being mean to him. He told me to leave because Levi won't come home till I promise not to do anything about what he did and put it in writing. I told him Levi should stay there with him then. He's not to come back till he gets proper punishment. His dad argued at his mum's house too, and called my wife and she asked to let this go. We'll figure out some way to resolve it, but I don't think it's fair for Susan to have her books ruined and Levi getting away with it. They're asking me to let it go, but this will only encourage Levi to do worse if I don't deal with it now. It's been 2 weeks, and my in-laws say I was out of line for banning Levi from home and are telling me to step back, but I refused. Edit, Levi's dad thinks that because I'm not his bio dad, then I have no right to punish him for whatever he does in the house. In the past, his dad caused issues when I used to take Levi's electronics that his dad brought as punishment. Then I got talked out of punishing him every time something unacceptable, whether to me or his sisters. I've arranged for family therapy, but Levi's dad refused to let him go. Edit, I'd like to mention that my in-law said that Levi is willing to apologize to Susan, and so this should be enough to get it over with, but I kept saying no, and for that I'm being considered at fault. Now, as always, we've had previous stories that's very, very similar to this situation before, and it's like, if OP was just to let this go now, it's just showing the daughter, that her feelings are not really valid in this situation, and letting Levi get away without any consequences whatsoever. It makes no sense. I totally back what you're doing on this one, OP, and both the parents are enabling him to get away with stuff at the moment, so I gotta say you're not the arsehole in this one to me. But Reddit user says, not the arsehole, if your wife refuses to punish her son, then you need to divorce her, or at the very least, move into a separate house with Susan and your youngest daughter until Levi is out the house for good. If your stepson continues to get away with hurting Susan with no consequence, Susan is going to suffer greatly. This is a hill to die on. And edit, to everyone telling me that divorce is a crazy suggestion and is an overreaction, I'd like to point out my suggestion specified that he do it if his wife refuses to punish her son. I'm not saying that he shouldn't try to convince his wife first. I'm saying that if she continues to go along with her ex-husband and refuse to punish her son, when her son does horrible things to his daughter, then OP needs to separate his daughters from the stepson. If OP does manage to get his wife on side, then no. Obviously, he shouldn't need to divorce his wife. And Bosker says, file a complaint in the small claims court for the value of the books. Keep it up with everything he destroys. When Biodad is on the hook for paying for all his destructive behaviour, he'll change his tune. And Redefine421 says, not the arsehole. You're the only reasonable person in the situation. Levi should be punished for destroying someone else's property. But with his dad constantly making excuses for him, he knows he can get away with literally anything. This isn't going to turn out well when Levi turns 18 and is held accountable for his actions. Daddy can't tell the cops that it's someone else's fault that his precious son did something bad. It doesn't work that way. He's going to wind up in jail. Take all of Levi's stuff left at your house and have a yard sale. If it has expensive electronics, sell them on eBay or Marketplace. Use the money to replace your daughter's books collection. That seems like the only fair thing to do at this point. If and when he comes back to your house, he'll probably throw a fit, but that's pretty much the only way you can punish him if he's hiding out at his dad's. And that bro Joshy says, not the arsehole, if you let this go to show your daughter that she means nothing and can be stepped on whenever. It'll also show Levi he's immune to punishments and he'll keep doing it. Do not let him get away with this for the sake of your daughter. And CT0760 says, oh my god, not the arsehole. His parents are clearly enabling him and he needs to learn consequences. If he isn't showing remorse or regret over what he does and keeps doing it, then why should he be welcome in your home? I'd consider filing a report with the police if you let him back and he does stuff. Destruction of property should give him punishment. I'm probably being a bit extreme here, but who wants to take care of such a kid? And we'll have one more from Horror Jellyfish 1233 who says, I'm still trying to process Levi's biodad saying Levi won't go back until OP promises not to punish him. So then OP says, fine, he's not coming back. Then biodad is like, what? No fair, it's his mum's house too. Like, pick a side, dude. Also, not the arsehole, do not let him back in the house after the way he treated your daughter. Now, what would you do in this situation? It's got to be a tricky situation with the family dynamics and everything. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and we'll move on to the next story. And our next story comes from a throwaway account. Am I the arsehole for telling my girlfriend my mother died when she was really in prison? My girlfriend, 24 female, and I, 25 male, have been together for 2.5 years, and on the first date she asked about my family, and I blanked and said my mum died of cancer. She told me 5 minutes before that her mum was battling cancer and I had to make up something on the spot, so defaulted to cancer. That got a lot of sympathy from her, which I felt guilty about. I should have told her after a while, but I was embarrassed that my mother was an addict and was afraid she would probably be angry about the initial lie, so I never said anything. My mother was actually in prison for drug possession with intent to distribute. She has been an addict since I was 9, and my dad got full custody of me since then. My mother has been in and out of prison and rehab constantly. I've only met her a handful of times afterwards because she's always in some kind of facility. I don't like thinking about her because it's painful to think she didn't love me enough to stay sober. She had started writing letters to me, and my dad encouraged me to respond. I started doing that and it graduated to phone calls. She got out recently, so the phone calls got more frequent. I don't want to get my hopes up, but I want her to have changed. Girlfriend heard one of these and asked who I was calling. I told her no one. It should be obvious I'm a terrible liar, and she seemed to take my word for it. I contacted my mother a few more times and hid in the bathroom to talk with her, and I think girlfriend got suspicious I was cheating on her because she looked through my phone. She confronted me and told me she called the number and it was from an older lady and wanted to know what was up. I told her the truth and she got angry when I told her. I wasn't ready to tell her something so personal. She accused me of lying when I told her I wanted to get engaged. We had been talking about it for a few months and I had been saving for a ring. I told her I didn't lie about that, and she told me if I didn't feel ready to talk about my mother with her, I wasn't ready to marry her. I don't know where she got that association, but she has refused to talk about any engagement plans since. It's been a few months and we're still together, but I can tell she doesn't feel the same way as before she found out. Now, I may get hated on for my take on this one. Absolutely, I'm going to say that OP is the arsehole in the situation. They're the arsehole for, lying on the initial date. They're the arsehole for saying it's cancer. But I do get the anxiety involved on the first date like that. And I'm putting myself back full of social anxiety, absolutely full of it. And I met someone at this time and we got along great. It was a first date. We actually met online, strangely, but went on this date and we went out, had a great evening, all that kind of stuff. And we met again, and one time she wanted to drop me off at my house and I was too embarrassed. Because of the area I lived, it was central Oxford. It was a pretty rough area, and I was embarrassed about where I lived. And I know that's shameful to say, but that's the way I felt at the time. It was anxiety towards that. And yes, I'm embarrassed that I was anxious at the time because of that. It was arsehole-ish of me to feel that way, and I got the person to drop me off further outside of where I lived and made up excuses for it. And that was a huge arsehole move on my part, but I do understand OP's anxiety from that point of view. It doesn't excuse their arsehole-ishness, but I do understand it. But the fact that they continued to lie and, when it was always going to come out in the end, makes them a bigger arsehole. But Jenny Luhu says, you're the arsehole. I don't think you needed to say where your mum was exactly. You could have just said she isn't in your life, but lying and saying she died of cancer and continuing to lie makes you the arsehole. And Sick Dave says, you're the arsehole. Saying your mother was dead was an arsehole move. Saying she was killed by cancer minutes after your now girlfriend told you her own mother was battling is just, I literally can't find the words. No judgment of your relationship with your mother. It's a complication I won't pretend to understand. Hopefully she stays sober. And Amelia Thursday 2010 says, you're the arsehole. Cancer. Why not AIDS? Why not sold into human trafficking? My dad died of cancer. It was awful. And do you know where I wish he was now? Literally anywhere, including prison, because that'd still be better than cancer. You had 2.5 years. She will leave you. And once she does, try to hold back from telling people your ex died of cancer. And Real Doug Spiegel says, you're the arsehole. She is right now, and you can marry someone you're not ready to tell something so personal to. And Weeb Wob says, you're the arsehole for lying for 2.5 years and never coming clean when you could and should have. You told a pretty significant lie and let it get to the point where your girlfriend thought you were cheating. It's no wonder she's upset and backing off on getting married. You were ready to marry her but also didn't feel like you could trust her with the truth. Time to re-evaluate. I get that having a mum in that kind of life situation is tough. In that sense, I feel like it's kind of a softer you're the arsehole. But I find it hard to believe that in the 22 to 23 years of your life prior to meeting your girlfriend, you never had this type of situation come up in conversation before, or thought about what you'd like to say if someone you just met asked that question. And Alert Potato says, you're the arsehole. There's lots of ways you could have been honest without disclosing the full truth. Instead, you latched onto your date's trauma and used it to concoct a lie about your past. Since then, you have slowly increased contact with your mother and still failed to disclose your lie. You let it get so bad with obviously hiding something from her that she thought you were cheating, and you still weren't honest with her. She found out by going through your phone. She can't know if you had even been honest if she'd confronted you. Why should she trust you? Part of your entire relationship foundation was built on a moment of bonding over having mums with cancer. I also agree with her assessment. If you aren't able to be honest with someone about the fact that you have a living parent you are in contact with, you aren't ready to marry that person. Marriage is a partnership of complete trust. If you don't trust her enough to tell her you're talking to your drug addict mother, there's nothing to build a marriage with. And then we'll have one more from Aja saying, you're the arsehole. First you lied to her on the very beginning of your relationship, and then you lied that you lost your mother to something one of her parents is battling with. Seems kind of cruel and heartless to me. And since that was a period you started getting to know each other, you lied, which now makes her think you lie about anything else, or even everything you told her was a lie. And by not coming clean earlier, like when you realize you want to marry this girl, before talking about engagement you should have told her the truth. And after that, talk about engagement. Now, what do you guys think of this situation? How would you react if you was told this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and your verdicts on all of today's stories. I love hearing about what you're up to and your thoughts, and everything is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being here, your love, time and support, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.